Good morning. Let me try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me thank the escort committee. President Mabe, that picture that was up there when I was walking in, we might need to update that. But God bless you for showing it. President Mabe, Vice President Jolly, Secretary Treasurer Gersper, on behalf of the trade union movement in the state of Ohio, it's an honor and a privilege to address you here today. As a third-generation steelworker, grew up just down the street from the Marion Correctional Institution on the eve of Labor Day weekend, in the town where the American Federation of Labor was formed. There's no place I'd rather be than with you this morning, right here at this great convention. I'm so proud of this union for so many reasons. The anti-union haters, the anti-public employee politicians that are out there have thrown everything at you. They've thrown Senate Bill 5 at you to try to take away your hard-earned collective bargaining rights. They've come at you with privatization, consolidation, budget cuts everywhere you can imagine, the great austerity measures, and of course trying to take away your ability to collect dues and fees. You could have retreated or resigned to defeat, settling for what simply they would hand out to you, but displaying in the great tradition of the trade union movement, you stood up and you fought back. You organized internally, you strategized, you strengthened your union, you've reconnected with your membership, and you're ready to grow, and you're ready to win. Now, I bring some good news, President Mabe. Just this week, the Gallup poll community came out with a new survey. They asked Americans, how do you feel about trade unions in America? Sisters and brothers, the fight that you're in, the fight that we're all in, the American people have our back. 2 out of 3 Americans have said they support you in what you do. We haven't seen the kind of numbers that we're seeing now in public opinion polls since the 1950s, sisters and brothers. The labor movement is poised for a resurgence. There were more strikes and actions last year by working people than we've seen in decades. Those teachers that walked off the job in primarily red states lit the candle for collective action. Those teachers said, we should not have to teach your children and go home after we teach your children to our second job just to make ends meet. And sisters and brothers, that's not right. They stood up, they walked out, and we had their backs. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, did a survey recently, and they asked American workers, if you could join a union today, would you do it? And sisters and brothers, tens of millions of workers in this country would join a union today if they had the opportunity. They just need our help. They need the help of labor law reform. And of course, they need the help of all working people coming together, and we can show the way through our efforts and solidarity. Importantly, millennials are showing more than ever. In the Gallup poll and the other surveys that have been taking, young people understand what we've known since 2 turns of the century ago, that we're stronger together. They don't exactly know what the National Labor Relations Act is, most likely don't know what CERB is, but they know if they take their sister's arm here at work and their brother's arm here at work, they've got a stronger voice together to demand that they're treated with dignity on the job, safe working conditions, and they have an opportunity to bargain for a better life. Sisters and brothers, millennials understand what our forefathers and foremothers understood, that we're stronger together, and that it's us that creates this economy, and we need to be taken care of, and we need to stand up for our rights, and that's exactly what we're going to do when we leave this convention later today, is go back to our communities and organize. Now, we've always known that our strength is in our solidarity. You've shown solidarity in your union, and you've showed solidarity in the broader labor movement. When I had the honor 8 years ago to become president of the Ohio AFL-CIO, my #1 goal and mission was to bring solidarity in the trade union movement, because I knew if we had our house in order, the general public would soon follow. Well, I was tested right away. 1 month after I had the honor to be elected president of the Ohio AFL-CIO, they dropped Senate Bill 5 in our laps. And you know what? I knew that the public employee sector would have its house in order. We certainly did our part to make sure we supported that effort. The first press conference I held 2 weeks after they introduced that legislation was not bringing public employees together on the rotunda floor to talk to Ohioans, but I brought all the muscle unions, all the private sector unions, all the blue-collar unions, the auto workers, the steel workers, the machinists, the bricklayers, the carpenters, the electricians, the food and commercial workers. I brought all the private sector workers together and stood on the rotunda floor and said, you might think this is about trying to rein in public employees, but let me correct the record here. This is a fight for all Ohioans. This is at the heart and soul of working people in the state of Ohio, and these leaders behind me are representing hundreds of thousands of private sector workers, and if you try to take away the rights, collective bargaining rights of public employees, you're going to have to deal with us also. And sisters and brothers, we owe a debt of gratitude to those private sector workers. Now, we knew that our theme for Senate Bill 5 was it's unsafe, it's unfair, and it hurts us all. But when we have an opportunity to tell the American labor movement story, the labor movement history here in the state of Ohio, whether you're with or belong to a union or not, your neighbors and your friends and your community understand that it's your work, it's your sacrifice, it's your efforts that sets the bar for working people. It sets the working condition standards. It sets the wage standards. It sets the benefit standards for health care and retirement. Sisters and brothers, when you attack a union member, you're attacking the entire workforce. We had an opportunity to tell that story, and because of this union stepping forward the way it did to say we're going to have solidarity, we're going to have message discipline, we're going to take the campaign, start with our own house, and then we're going to build it out to the general public. And with that, we showed that we are the strongest force for good in the state of Ohio, and we always will be as long as we have our house in order. Can you agree with me on that? Now, this union is so great because you understand what we're talking about in terms of solidarity. Just last year and the year before, the Supreme Court, appellate courts are starting to rule on right to work locally in the private sector, the National Labor Relations Act. There's a little town down in southwest Ohio called Westchester. For those of you who may remember the former U.S. Speaker of the House, John Boehner, not really a union friend. John Boehner's office in Westchester, Ohio, gives you some idea what kind of landscape and territory we're dealing with down there, Red County. And the township trustees got together, 3 Republicans on the township trustees, and 2 of the 3 said, wouldn't it be nice to have right to work in Westchester Township for those people doing work here? So we found out, okay, who are the union members, first off, in Westchester? It's the steel workers, it was the auto workers, it was the food and commercial workers. And we got our facts straight and found out when the next township trustee meeting was, and we sent 30 people into the township trustee meeting. They get about 10 to 20 people to trustee meetings. We had a firefighter get up and speak about the ill effects of right to work. We had a teacher speak to the ill effects of right to work. We had a steel worker get up and speak to the ill effects of right to work. And when the steel worker, a good friend of mine, Donnie Wardrop, got up to speak, they asked him, where do you live, sir? Well, I live in this township district. Well, where do you work, sir? Well, I work for the steelworkers staff. I don't work directly in this township. Well, you can't speak, sir. And as a steelworker brother of mine, he didn't take that very lightly. And he said, well, I'm going to speak. And he knew one thing. He knew the sergeant of arms, the police officer there who was charged with escorting people out, should they be township trustees asked him to, was his ex-neighbor and good friend. And he knew damn well that wasn't going to happen. So fast forward then, 2 weeks later, I called President Mabe and I said, we got a cancer growing down in Westchester Township, and I know you're going to want to be down there. So we said at the next township trustee meeting, we had 30, then we had 50, and then the third meeting, we said we better step it up just to make sure they understand what they're dealing with if they want to go down this road. President Mabe got how many buses, Chris? Two buses, 2 or 3 buses. We met at the UAW hall right before, probably about 1,000 people. More people they've seen gathered there in Westchester Township in a long time. And we made our way over to the township trustee meeting. And we filled every crack and crevice in that hall. And then we live streamed the event back to the UAW hall for those who we knew wouldn't have room to fill it. Sisters and brothers, that was the end of that debate. Because this union stood up with the private sector workers and said enough is enough. We'll not have right to work in this state. We'll not have right to work in Westchester Township. To be continued. Now, solidarity is not an option. History tells us that we're the strongest force for good. Look at what we've done over the years. Look at what we've done with the National Labor Relations Act that gave workers, by law and definition, an opportunity to form and join a union, and what that did. Look at the Fair Labor Standards Act. Gave us the 40-hour work week, gave us minimum wage, stopped child labor laws, stopped child labor in sweatshops. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Safety and Health Administration, workers' comp, unemployment compensation, collective bargaining rights, and our fight joining with our sisters and brothers in the civil rights movement. Together, we've made a difference in the fight for economic and social justice, and we're called on again. Dr. King said the race baiters and the union haters are twin-headed creatures. Let me repeat that. Dr. King said race baiters and union haters are twin-headed creatures. We're dealing with this right now, and we're called on to come together and take on this creature that's looking to tear our country apart. Now, solidarity on issues is critical. We also have to have, as we transition into our political seasons, solidarity in politics. We'll confront this two-headed monster in our workplaces, in our communities, and at the ballot box. And I want to give a shout out to the A. Philip Randolph Institute. Are there any APRI members in the house here today? APRI sued on the voter purge law in the state of Ohio, which says if you haven't voted in the last 2 even-number year elections that you're going to be kicked off the rolls. How democratic is that? The case went to the United States Supreme Court, where, not surprisingly, this is the same court that ruled on Janus. Not surprisingly, it was a 4-3 decision that said they were within their rights. APRI and the ACLU did not give up. They went and met with the Ohio Secretary of State's office, and I'm pleased to announce that they reached a settlement yesterday with the Secretary of State that says if you've been purged, you will have the ability to vote provisional through 2022. That's a real step in the right direction, sisters and brothers. Now, we'll work with the politicians that are on our side, no matter the party. I think I saw live streaming or pictures yesterday. You had Speaker Householder here, is that right? Speaker Householder is a Republican, but I knew after the November elections last year that we had to find real friends and allies, regardless of which aisle of the political spectrum they sit on. I knew Speaker Householder from his previous days in the House of Representatives. He's a friend of organized labor. But I also knew that it was going to be an uphill fight for him to win his speaker's race. So over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, I convened a coalition of union leaders and representatives, of which this union participated in, and said we have to take a look at trying to weigh in on the speaker's race, which is rarely what we do, right? It's usually the Democratic and House caucuses take care of their business. Somebody gets 50 votes and they're Speaker of the House, and it's usually the party in power. Well, the party in power were the Republicans, and they were a House divided. The Speaker of the House last year, after Speaker Rosenberger left amidst an FBI probe, Ryan Smith was no friend of organized labor. In fact, when the United Auto Workers were trying to organize the Fuyao plant in Moraine, Ohio, Ryan Smith added his list of names of state representatives that said, don't go with these, he called us outside forces. Don't side up with these outside forces that are coming into your workplace trying to tell you what to do. He signed a letter, and unfortunately that union effort was scuttled, and we're making another run at it. But I knew who Ryan Smith was, and I knew who Speaker Householder was. So after talking with President Mabe and members of my key leadership on our executive board, we decided to throw in on this race. And historically, never been done here before in the state of Ohio, we got 26 Democrats to join with 26 Republicans to elect Larry Householder Speaker of the House. And what you saw yesterday was a testament that he's given us his word, and he's followed through on his word, not just on administrative and structural things which were needed because the House of Representatives, the General Assembly was a mess, but on policy issues, and we've seen that this first 6 months. We will work with whoever is on our side, sisters and brothers, regardless of political party. However, we will not settle when it comes to endorsement. You're either going to be pro-union and show it, or you're not going to get our support. So, we've got a lot of legislation, a lot of policy we're dealing with yet this year. We've got local elections, and then we're going to turn and pivot quickly to Labor 2020. You may have heard there's a presidential election next year, and in Ohio we have 2 Ohio Supreme Court seats up. Why is that important? Because issues of the General Assembly that you care about, and certainly with redistricting of our state house and our congressional lines being drawn for the 2022 elections, disputes are going to be settled at the Ohio Supreme Court. We have a philosophical minority in the Supreme Court, 2-5. 2 seats up. If we can win one of the 2 seats, it makes a tremendous difference. If we win 2 seats, we get a philosophical majority back on the Supreme Court that understands working people, and we're going to be engaged in that, and we're going to need your help. Can we count on you? So we will get to Labor 2020 soon enough. We will follow the lead of your international president, Lee Saunders. We'll follow the lead of the AFL-CIO. This is the one office in which the AFL-CIO at the state or local level have no endorsement authority. So we'll let the debates ensue. We'll let the primary process and election take place in March of next year. And at some point, we'll have an endorsed candidate. And then at that point, we're going to start to spell out the differences between our endorsed candidate and the opposition. And we'll start to move those issues in the workplaces, and we need your help. We need to move those issues, and they're on issues, so you should be okay legally to move comparison and contrast pieces. And we need you to do local union mail, and then we'll be at the doors, and we'll be on the phones, and we're going to be doing digital and social media. We have sisters and brothers, got to win this country back. We've got to win this state back for working people. The American people are behind me, and I know we're going to get it done. So, in conclusion, with President Saunders in the House today, let me thank him. Let me thank him for all the resources, the investment, the belief in you all, the belief in the United Labor Movement in the state of Ohio. We cannot guarantee outcomes of elections, but we can guarantee that nobody will outwork us or out-effort us. And that much I commit to. With your help, we'll make sure that we do that again. So as we get together this weekend, the 25th anniversary of the Labor Day holiday, let's celebrate the work that we do, recommit to our solidarity of the trade union movement, and remember that we have the power to create the economy and just society that we deserve. Thank you very much, and God bless your union.